Hey, welcome back to For What It's Worth. My name is Will. We are going through Bible prophecy, and I want to talk today about what Jesus said would be the days of Lot when he comes back. When his return, he said there would be two ways to describe the conditions of the world when he returns. The first was the days of Noah, and then he also said the days of Lot. I have a Days of Noah video that I did early on. If you'll scroll down to the bottom of my videos, you'll see that there. And but I want to talk about the days of Lot. What does that mean? Well, he says this in Luke 17:28 through 37. Let me read this for you. Likewise, also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat and drink, and they bought and sold, and they planted and they built. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, the same day he went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day, he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. I tell you, in that night, there shall be two men in one bed. Kind of sounds cringe. And one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding together, one shall be taken and the other left. Two men shall be in a field, one will be taken and the other left. And they answered and said to him, Where, Lord? And he said to them, Wherever the body is, there will the eagles be gathered together. So we saw the days of Noah already, and that was, in a summary, the way of saying that people would be taken unaware and be completely unprepared for the judgment that was coming. And it's also illustrated the swiftness of judgment that would come upon the world. We also see that here in the days of Lot. When Jesus underscores the climate of his return by referencing the days of Lot, what does he mean by this? Well, this primarily refers to several things, but one would be the business as usual way that people will be conducting their lives. They drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. I think this may be some small evidence that when the rapture and the resurrection occurs, it will be prior to the great days of wrath, prior, in my opinion, to the midpoint, when daily life will be greatly disrupted by the things that are going to be coming upon the earth. It will still be somewhat business as usual. It will not be cataclysmic to the point that everybody's going, it's the end of the world. Remember, Paul said they will be crying and they will be saying peace and safety, then will come sudden destruction. So it will be somewhat peaceful. I think there'll be some kind of normalcy going on right before the wrath is unleashed, right before the very end, before he returns. He said, It rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. The day that the Son of Man is revealed is when, I believe, he appears for the first time in the clouds in Revelation 14 at the midpoint of the 7 years. This is when he comes and he cuts down Israel's enemies and gathers his people to himself. After the midpoint, great destruction rains down on the earth from the vials of God's wrath, if you follow from chapter 14 in Revelation on. And then Jesus warns people not to look back and remember Lot's wife. In fact, this warning is very similar to Matthew 24:25 when he tells people that when you see the army surrounding Jerusalem, do not go back to your house and grab your jacket. Do not do anything but get out immediately when you see the abomination of desolation. It's the same kind of language. It's the same kind of warning. He said, don't turn back, get out. So that, I think, also is a pattern, and that kind of ties in with the same thing. Around the midpoint, something cataclysmic something bad is going to happen, and it's going to be the sign to get out of Jerusalem because the judgment is going to come raining down very soon. So I think that's another, another clue that that's the timing when this is going to happen. After the midpoint, great destruction rains down on the earth from the vials of God in heaven onto the earth. And remember Lot's wife. So what happened to Lot's wife? If you go back in Genesis, you'll see that she turned around and looked back at Sodom as it was being destroyed, and she turned into a pillar of salt. She wasn't saved. As God's people, we need to hold to the value of this world very loosely. We must not hold on to our love for our careers, our investments, our vested interests in this world. We must hold on to those things very lightly. Do not hold on to them too strongly. As Lot's wife, she looked back longingly, like, no, there goes my whole world. I'm losing it. And God's like, okay, well, you can become like the rest of them. Shazam. She turned into salt. So at this point, Jesus describes the catching away of some and the leaving behind of others in this passage. He says it will be at night. 2 will be in bed, and 2 will be in the field. And that's interesting because he says at night, but how many people are out working the fields at night? So this is kind of a worldwide thing. It's night on one side of the world when there's 2 people in bed, and it's day on the other side of the world when 2 people are working in the field. One will be taken, the other will be left. Now, the people who don't like the rapture like to say, this is one will be taken in judgment and the other will be left for safety. That's not at all what it means. That's not even the illustration of what happened. What happened was Lot's family was taken, and Sodom and the people of Sodom were left for judgment. That's the picture being shown here. God's people will be taken before the wrath falls on the earth, and the others will be left. Lot and his family were the ones taken away before judgment fell, not the other way around. It wasn't the other people that were taken in judgment and Lot was left with a pristine city. That's not how it worked. This is the rescuing of God's people from the earth before the judgment falls. This has to be a reference to the rapture, which appears to be happening at the midpoint when the wrath gets poured out. All right, so the disciples ask him, well, where will they go? I mean, he asked the question, where? So the answer to the question is, wherever the body is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Now, there's a lot of weird explanations for this. In fact, a lot of the Bible versions don't say eagles, they say vultures. I think either way, the picture still works. Where are eagles gathered together? Well, Job 39, 27 through 28 says, doth the eagle mount up at thy command and make her nest on high? She dwells and abides on the rock, upon the crag of the rock and the strong place. Okay, she is up high, up on the rocks. That's where the eagle lives. Where are vultures gathered? Let's go with the vulture translation. Where do vultures gather? Where there's bodies. They're up circling. They're up circling above it. So with either translation, it can be said that the gathering of the body of Christ will be in the air above the place where the judgment is taking place. And this is another reference to the rapture resurrection, I believe. So go back to the story of Lot. And what happened in that story? And where did he and his family go and hide from the fire and brimstone that came raining down? Because it's going to be like the days of Lot. Well, number one, Sodom and Gomorrah was a place. Let's look at the actual story. Go to Genesis chapter 19. Verse 4 and 5 says, before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called out to Lot, and they said, where are the men who came with you tonight? Bring them out that we may have sex with them. I'm not using the King James here anymore. King James was much more discreet. They said, bring them out that we may know them. Number one, Sodom and Gomorrah was a place of sexual perversion and distinctly the perversion of homosexuality. That's what the days of Lot are like. I know it's not popular to say that anymore because there's another place in the Bible that says that the people of Sodom were not hospitable to strangers. Yeah, that's a kind of what it does say, but it's referring to this. They were not hospitable to the angels who came, who they thought were handsome men that they wanted to do perverted things with. So the days of Lot are going to be characterized by sexual perversion and homosexuality. And it's not just in America. It's not just in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's all over the world. Okay, Israel, Tel Aviv is a very homosexual place. They have pride parades there. All of Europe is captured by this stuff. All of Western civilization is just drunk on this rainbow diversity, homosexual, trans, all this filth. And that is what it is. There's no way to get around this and to be like, well, the church has really treated these people terribly and we need to be more loving and kind, and their sin's no different than anybody else's sin. And the Bible says that fornication is different than other sins. It's against your own body. Okay, that's heterosexual fornication. Okay, so homosexual sin is in a different category. Now it's all sin and it all goes to judgment. Okay, nobody's better than anybody else, but there are some sins that are worse than other sins. Okay, the thief will be judged much less strictly than the murderer. All right. So that's number one. Number two, Lot's godly influence had been watered down and diminished to absolute compromise and ineffectiveness. This is what we find. Verse 6, Lot went outside to meet them, and he shut the door behind him and said, "No, my friends, my brethren," in the King James, "don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters that have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you like to them." I can't imagine. I have 2 daughters. I cannot imagine doing that. I would be out with pews to meet those people at the door, not offering them my daughters. Now, maybe he said that to just, maybe there's something there I don't see or I don't understand, that he knows they're not going to do that. So let me bring them out to you, he says. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-laws who were pledged to marry his daughters. And he said, "Hurry, get out of this place. The Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-laws thought he was joking. Lot had lost his influence. He had lost his salt, so to speak, as Jesus put it. He was not effective. He was not influencing anybody. It kind of reminds me of the modern church. Kind of reminds me of me. Kind of reminds me of most of us as Christians in this country, in this Western civilization. We've lost our influence. We've lost our zeal. We've lost our effectiveness. People don't take us seriously. People don't really respect anything we have to say, and it's our fault. Okay, we did it to ourselves. That's the way the church is today. Most churches you go into, and they're just a big goofy party that's like a nightclub concert that's second rate. Third, Lot and his daughters fled to the mountains outside of Zoar. So this isn't really a condition. This is more of a action that happened that is going to be significant. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar, and then they settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. All right, so this is an interesting point that's been overlooked due to the sordid actions that draw our attention in the next verse, where the daughters fornicate with their father and conceive children by him. But the place where they went to hide, even though that's overlooked, is still important. They would go to a place outside of Zoar, which is south of the Dead Sea, and there's some mountains there, and they go hide in a cave. Now, Zechariah 14:5 says, And you shall flee to the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall be called Azal. That's the same area. Revelation 12:13 says, and when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman, speaking of pursuing Israel, who'd given birth to the male child, which is speaking of Jesus. But the woman had been given wings of a great eagle, so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she would be nourished for a time and half a time. Let's see here. Isaiah 16, verse 1 and 2 says, send the lamb to the ruler of the land from Selah by way of the desert to the mount of the daughter of Zion. Like fleeing birds, like a scattered nest, so are the daughters of Moab, as the fords of Arnon. Let the outcasts of Moab sojourn among you, be a shelter to them from the destroyer, when the oppressor is no more, and destruction has ceased, and he who tramples underfoot has vanished from the land. This is important. Why? Because Moab is the name of one of the sons that Lot has with his daughter. And he says that the place of Moab is the place that is going to, what do you say here? Shelter them from the destroyer until the oppressor is no more, until he vanishes from the land. So there's something about the land of Moab, the mountains of Azor or in Zoar, that the people will flee to in the wilderness, and they will be nurtured there and they will be hidden there. Revelation 12:6 says that the woman fled into the wilderness, and she had a place prepared by God in which she would be nourished for 1,260 days. That's the second half of the 7 years. And then we see, and again, this is what ties together Jesus' second coming at the midpoint. Isaiah 63, who is he who comes from Edom in crimson garments from Bozrah? This is the same area down in the south. He who is splendid in his apparel, marching in greatness and strength. It is I, speaking in righteousness, mighty to save. This is speaking of Jesus, who when he returns, it says here he's marching from Edom and from Bozrah, and his garments are stained with blood. And this is where we see Jesus at the midpoint in Revelation coming down to rescue Israel when the abomination of desolation occurs and the people of Israel are scattered and a remnant of them hide in the wilderness, the same place where Lot and his daughters hid and were sheltered from the wrath of God. This is what also happens to Israel during that time. There's some more about this. Micah 3:12 says, I will surely assemble Jacob, all of thee. I will surely gather a remnant of Israel. I will put them together as sheep of Bozrah, as the flock in the middle of their fold. They shall make a great noise of reason by the multitude of men. So he's going to gather them like sheep and hide them in a place called Bozrah, which is like in Jordan today, south of the Dead Sea, in a similar area where Lot fled. Jeremiah 49:22 says, behold, he shall come up and fly as the eagle and spread his wings over Bozrah. And on that day shall the heart of the mighty men of Edom be as the heart of a woman in her pangs. So Jesus will return on a cloud wearing one crown, as we see in Revelation 14, carrying a sickle to the Mount of Olives and defeat those who are coming against Israel in league with the Antichrist, who desires to kill them. And he leads the remnant who flee like Lot to the mountain wilderness valley of Bozrah in the land of the Moabites. Moab was the incestuous son of Lot and his daughter. And after the abomination of desolation, the remnant of Israel's survivors will flee to the same place that sheltered Lot during the time of God's wrath, while Jesus himself escorts them out of Jerusalem and tramples everybody who tries to get in his way and come against his people, his sheep, Israel. This is where we find Jesus in Isaiah 63, leaving Bozrah with bloodied garments, who is mighty to save. Jesus will decimate his enemies who have gathered against Israel at this time in the war known as and that's our next video, I think, Gog and Magog. And when they gather against Jerusalem, this is also when Jesus will strike Antichrist with a deadly head wound, that he will appear to have recovered from this, and the image of the beast will be given authority to carry out the Antichrist's rule for the remainder of the 3.5 years, causing all to take the mark of the beast, or they'll be beheaded. And the image of the beast will appear to make the Antichrist look like he's been resurrected from the dead and is unstoppable by even Jesus Christ himself. During this time, Jesus will keep the remnant of Israel safe and will rejoin his bride for the wedding feast during the time of the outpouring of God's wrath. It is after the wedding feast in chapter, I think, 18 of Revelation, that Jesus returns with his bloodied garments that he had already got bloodied in his first coming and running through Bozrah. He'll be this time riding on a white horse with many crowns, not just one crown, many crowns, because he's just defeated his enemies and took their crowns. And his saints following behind him, that's us, the church, who have been raptured, and all the saints that have died before. And they will finally defeat the beast and the false prophet and all of their armies at Armageddon. And Armageddon is not the same place where he comes down on the Mount of Olives, because that's not the Armageddon. Armageddon is the Valley of Megiddo. That's in another place. And this differentiates the second coming on the Mount of Olives from the midpoint to the final second coming of the Battle of Armageddon at the end of the 7 years. So the days of Lot have a lot of meaning in it besides just the typical themes that we think of homosexuality being prevalent, the compromised state of the church being noted, the disruption of daily living is being depicted. The rapture is being prefigured, and the place where Israel will hide is also found in this text. So that's what it'll be like. And I'm looking forward to him coming and getting us out of here before all of that happens. And I want to see you there. Take care.